Hey guys, Red Sun has returned. You're probably thinking to yourself, "Hey, why didn't you make a video yesterday? Why didn't you make a why didn't you make this video like last time you should have uploaded?" Well, let me tell you a little story. I live in Tennessee. Tennessee fucking sucks. Like you can look up like what most country or not countries. It might as well be. These things are the size of fucking Britain anyway. But if you take every state in America and you figure out what they're known for, most of the time, Tennessee is going to be known for country music, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and racism. Now, that being said, I really don't give a shit about most of that, but we're in a little special spot where we usually get a lot of windy shit going on and tornadoes and a lot of windstorms. So, yeah, windstorms are a common thing. Probably not as common as like up in Kansas with Tornado Alley and the fucking Wizard of Oz, but that being said, I've had two really bad windstorms in the past week and a half, and they have sucked dick every single time. That being said, my power went out on the second one, which was a few days ago, and I didn't really have the ability to do anything. Now, some of the more observant of you are probably going to be like, "You record on a laptop. You've said it multiple times. Laptops don't need to be plugged in." Yeah, but I was working on a script at the time, and I literally had no light to write the damn script. Like, at all. The only thing that I was doing is I was sitting here by candlelight trying to read something just to pass the time because my power went out at like 5 o'clock. And we have a shit ton of food in the freezer and the refrigerator, and we almost lost all of it. Now, have you ever eaten that much food? This is a first world fucking problem if I've ever heard one. But have you ever had to eat a shit ton of food all at once just so it wouldn't go bad? It's a weird thing. But you're probably thinking the title of this video, I thought he was going to be talking about something a lot more pretentious and a lot more unnecessary for a lot of what his channel does. Because my channel is known for me and my brother doing dipshit stuff. Mostly me doing whatever the fuck I want with a kind of with a kind of thing going on with the whole class or ass, which I'm gonna keep doing videos on. But I also do other stuff, and he reviews hentai. He's I think he's found what he's good at. And I gotta give him credit for it. We recently hit 300 total views, and I'm a channel with currently 8 subscribers. I'm happy for every goddamn one of you. You know why? Because, look at me. Shitty laptop, little mask, little gloves, hand painted thing that I probably should have gotten replaced with something else. And there's my dipshit brother over there with a Crusader helmet, jerking off and trying to act like it's not, and calling it research. Seriously, 90% of his research he does with his pants off. And it's kind of creepy because he has a weird ass. We share a room, so I kind of see everything. Just want to go to sleep, man. That being said, I know I've already gone off, but when you're constantly like shoved in with just stuff, watching the internet, watching movies, and then you're left alone in your room when everybody else is asleep for a few hours, you start to think of some stuff, which is probably where the title of this video came from and where the actual content did. Because I made sure to write down the smallest premise of it through candlelight like a pretentious asshole writing classical music. But this video is more based around what I've figured out. I'm not saying any of this is necessarily bad or necessarily wrong. Just saying This is probably the longest script I've written. Now, I know it's a stupid idea for title of this video, Death of a Philosopher. The Death of the Philosopher. Not a special one, just the idea of it existing. I know it sounds pretentious to spout out ways of thinking while also shitting on another way of thinking, but this isn't that. This is me just showing off that this job doesn't exist anymore. The idea of a philosopher doesn't exist. A philosopher was just somebody who would go into a town and would judge the status quo. Would take things that were universally accepted and flip them on their head because the idea of them could be something else. Like, everybody viewed themselves as important and very strong in what they were. Until I'm pretty sure it was Socrates who said, "We are but dust in the wind." Something like that. And maybe I'm saying it more pretentious than he did. I don't know. I don't speak ancient Greek. But that being said, it's something that nobody had thought of. So that was his job. He was an asshole all the way until being an asshole got him killed. But that was his life. The same way with Diogenes, the same way with just all these different people. I know some people had more jobs than anybody else, had more jobs than anything. Uh, what's his name? Goddamn. Uh, Voltaire, Nietzsche, hey, everybody else you probably read a few dialogues of in your philosophy major, and then you came out thinking that you were hot shit because you could say, "Oh, life is meaningless, but we should all be able to take control of it for what it is." If first of all, if you took a philosophy major, if philosophy was a major in your college and you took it and actually gave a shit about it, you are the same as the people with the English majors. You are not going to use that for anything. Congratulations, you get an office job. Now, that little bit of it, I think the reason of the reason a lot of philosophy, a lot of the idea of a philosopher has just dropped off is because the way that it was spread when you couldn't spread it anywhere any other way. You could write a book with your point of view, or you could speak it the same way the oldest of the old philosophers did. They would say something, and it would the general gist of it would be spread across the nation, and the creator of it would be viewed as this overwhelmingly genius of a person. But they had no way of doing it. That's why Socrates himself, it was Socrates or Plato, one of the two, complained about the idea of the written word because it didn't have the familiarity of quoting it to another person. And then everything was taken as literal once it was written down. Now, the idea of spreading what you knew of the idea to somebody else created this way of thinking that honestly worked a lot better than everybody thought. Because now everybody can quote something, see that quote, and then act like it's said the way that everybody else says it. It's singular view pointed across everybody who sees it. But when stuff is spoken through mouth to mouth, just continuously going on between person to person, all the way until everybody knows about it, it's always a subjective thing because it's connecting with the way that people speak, the way that people, not speak, the way that people interact. It's continuous between one person and the next. Constantly getting that interaction that humans crave throughout their entire lives with with the feeling of socialness amongst a group, constantly saying something that you learned until eventually the idea of the philosopher who came up with this thing that drove you to create these new friends, these people you talk to, was revered as this insanely brilliant, godly character who knew more than anybody else, even though he was just a person who asked the right question. Why? The idea of why. Somebody says something and you can say why. And if there's not a definitive answer, then there's not a reason behind the statement itself. When somebody says, we need to brush our teeth, you say why, because you want to know the answer. The answer is usually, I want to keep my teeth clean. I want to make sure that they stay there forever. I want to make sure I don't get diseases. I want to make sure that my breath smells nice. But when somebody says, you need to stay alive, somebody can ask why, and they won't have a true answer. They'll have reasons, but they won't have answers. The difference between a reason and an answer is a reason pertains to someone else. If I say, I want you to do the dishes, and they say why, I'll say, because I don't want to do them. Because you made them. It's the idea of one person being told to do something that will help another human. But an answer doesn't help anybody. It just exists as a way of grounding yourself to a certain thing. If you say, why does the Earth orbit the sun? Because there's gravity that constantly pulls in towards the sun, but we're moving at such a high speed one direction that we constantly stay in a singular loop around it. That's an answer. It doesn't help you with anything. It's not going to solve any problems that you have. You're not going to like, oh, my car is shitty, but the earth revolves around the sun. So, that's going to fix my car. And then it doesn't do anything. It's just an answer. The answer that continues forward with whatever you were thinking. But it's always there. Now that it's been answered, it can never be unanswered. The answer is out there somewhere. Maybe it will be lost to time, but eventually people will find it again. Knowledge dies when everything dies. And I know this is like somebody talking about the death of a philosopher while also trying to think of something smart to say. But it's true. When everything is dead, so is knowledge. But as long as something is alive, knowledge is capable of coming back. Why do you think we see cave paintings? Everybody from then is dead. Not a single caveman has ever existed in today's time. But we still see all their stuff? That knowledge that they created by painting out their stories and using their tools, the knowledge it took for their brains to be put into that exists now because we found it. We went out and decided we want to know what they knew. So we found what they knew. They may know more. We'll eventually find it. The same way, every answer in the world is still going to be found. Comparatively, when someone says we are dust in the wind, on a grand scale, that's 100% true. The Earth is not even one of the bigger planets in our solar system. There's 9. I'm counting Pluto because I was raised that way and I'm not changing it because I like the little guy. Earth is not that big. Mars is very similar in size to it. Venus is very similar in size to it. But then there's Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus. Haha, funny name. And Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn. Like, we're barely the middle-sized one. If you count the sun as another celestial object in the system, we're on the lower half. Just think about it. We're not that big. The same way humans aren't that big of a thing. Humans, we think we're important. But then if you look at, like, how much space we occupy in the world, we're fucking outclassed by a lot of things. There are a lot of animals out there bigger than us. There are trees out there bigger than us. Yes, they exist more in this world than we do. Sure, we'll probably be able to do more, but they exist bigger than I'll ever be. And it's just the way that people think is they're always stuck. They're stuck in a single point of view because they were raised that way. Like I said with Pluto, I refuse to call it anything less than a planet because that was how I was raised. That was what my textbook said. It is a planet. And then somebody says, it's not in a planet. Well, I read it in that book, and that book was right about a lot of stuff. So I'm going to assume that was right as well, and I'm not going to change it because it's a subjective thing. Oh, you can classify it as a certain thing because we came up with a new term. The same way a gibbon was given the classification of a lesser ape. But there's no other animal in the lesser ape category. It's just gibbons. They made up an entire new category just to tell gibbons that they're small. That's what we did with Pluto. It's just a different one now, and I refuse to call it anything less than a planet because it's what I was told, and I don't like changing what I'm told. I understand learning is a new thing, and I understand the argument for that point of view, but I don't want to change it because I like what I was told, and I don't need to take that point of view, which is a problem with a lot of people. They refuse to take in new information. And they refuse to think of something else. The way the idea of parties were created, and this is just an example. This is the only example that I can think of, probably because it's the most in-your-face example that everybody shows. There's political parties. There's the two biggest ones, at least in America, which for some reason we still have. I'm pretty sure George Washington didn't want that, but we're going to keep going anyway. Yes, I'm getting a little preachy on that point. Let's get past it. There's two sides. One believes in one thing, and they never want to change because that's their core beliefs. And there's one on the other side that believes heavily in the opposite. Once the first group was created, the second group was immediately going to show up eventually. If I make a club right now and say, we love life, eventually there's going to be somebody out there who creates another club called Fuck Life. We didn't ask to be born. If they both, discuss between each other, eventually they'll both be the same size because that's how interactions work. One person decides one thing, the other person opposes them in a smaller force. Eventually they go back and forth until it's an equal and opposing forces. It's annoying that we continue down the exact same paths, but it continuously happens. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, I wrote down bullet points for what I was supposed to do just so I could remember to get back on topic, because I get off topic a lot. Now, if people preach in public, they're considered a lot of different things. Number one is crazy, because the person who talks in public is usually just trying to get their point of view into as many people as possible. Now, old times, they call that a philosopher or a public servant, just anybody who would try to change people's minds change the way that they're thinking. Or they'd be considered self-important and just people trying to get their points of views out. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but seriously, if you say, my idea is the best way of thinking, all of you should become what my thinking is, that's a piece of shit. You don't want people to join your way of thinking that way. But that's what a lot of people do. They try to say, this is the best idea, therefore, I will do this idea. Therefore, I will spread my ideas so people can think of me, way of thinking is amazing. That's how you get I'm 14 and this is deep on fucking Reddit. It's just people acting like they thought of something insanely smart. When I was a kid, I was given a prompt to write about Valentine's Day. I don't know why I forgot that. I hate Valentine's Day. But that was exactly what I did. Everybody wrote about what they like about Valentine's Day, and they were given that prompt. I was the only buddy in school. I was the only person in school who made a thing, who made like a counter argument. Fuck Valentine's Day. It's annoying for everybody who's not in a relationship, which is most of the people on Valentine's Day. Hey, that's every time. I didn't give a shit about Valentine's Day. Everybody acted like they liked each other. Eventually they would break up. And I know that's a nihilist point of view, but I have something about that as well. Not to like discourage it because I didn't like Valentine's Day at all. It was an annoying thing, and it pissed me off a lot of the time. Right. But every person that says what they're thinking and tries to help people by spreading what they're thinking is always judged before what they're saying can be thought of. If you're young, everybody thinks, oh, you're inexperienced. What you're saying is not validated because you're young. Huh. You haven't had the experience that I have. We should all live life happily, but I have a shitty job. How am I supposed to live happily if I have a shitty job? I'm 8. Just like live happily. It's easy. Just set it up. Well, you don't know what you're fucking talking about because I work all the damn time. I'm stressed out. I have to work because if I don't work, then no one's gonna be able to get money to survive. Exactly. You shit on that kid by pushing your problems onto him because he hasn't had those problems. That's why a lot of us don't like it when celebrities try to say shit like, "Don't worry, we believe in each other. We'll win." Or they do that stupid fucking song over Instagram, whatever the hell it was, where they start saying like, "Imagine there's no heaven." First of all, it's a shitty lyric to come out with. When everybody's dying. But it's always but when people above you who probably don't have your problems start telling you about ways that you can view things, then you immediately call them out on their bullshit. Because like, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a miner. I sit in places and breathe in stuff that gives me black lung every single day, and I walk out of it making a few bucks. And then somebody famous comes out and says like, oh, well, money's not really that important, coming from somebody who has a shit ton of it. You're trying to act like you're above me? I'm trying to work my hardest. You have all the money. I don't have the money. That's why I have to work. You got lucky. Everybody attacks the person who's doing better than they are because they act like they haven't been through struggles. There are people who have gotten to the highest, who've gotten rich and successful and famous, who did not get there easily. Have you seen like Have you seen like any videos or documentaries talking about Joaquin Phoenix's past? It's kind of fucked up. The reason he's so captivating on screen is because he's fucking scary. Because he's been through some scary shit. But everybody judges the person who's talking the loudest because they're famous. They're not willing to learn what they're saying because they immediately judge them by what they have. If a man with a normal car sees a man with a Ferrari say that Ferraris aren't that great, you shouldn't try to get them, that's just going to sound like a pompous ass to anybody below them. Sorry, my vision was getting a little fucked up. I was trying to read a little bit more of the script that I had. The same way the same way you immediately judge somebody by one thing, you can see stupidity in humans as they try to go against what they're being told. Well, somebody, a lot of the times you see these a lot nowadays, but eventually there'd be a new movie that comes out that usually has a villain and a hero, and everybody will see the hero is like, oh, he's 100% right with what he's doing, and we should follow that because he's a blatant symbol of goodness and purity. And then the villain will also have a motivation, and people will start to gravitate towards the villain. It'll be a smaller percentage, but people will gravitate towards the villain. Why? Because some people do it out of spite for the hero. They'll side with the villain because the villain has an interesting reason. And it's a point of view you've never thought of because most of us are conditioned to point towards a good point of view, eventually leading us to try to explore new points of view. Be good for good reasons. That's every hero in anything ever. But then the villain will come out with something that you've never expected. It's a point of view that you just haven't learned of because nobody ever tells you about it. The hero is so widely told about that nobody ever considers what the villain's done. Now I know these are kind of a little bit of tangents outside that just kind of elaborate a little bit on the. I dropped the cup and it didn't hit anything. I am awesome. It's always little tangents like this that'll end up ruining my points, but I feel like I can get the bottom part. Whatever. People. Apparently past me couldn't figure out why the death of a philosopher was an idea either. All he wrote down was people are easily drawn to a single idea and often refuse to change it. There wasn't a lot else. It's just something apparently past me saw a lot easier than me now. I forget really easily. I don't remember the best. It's not like there's nothing like fucked up in my head. Although 14-year-old me really wanted to be crazy. The 19-year-old me was thinking maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe that's a good way to just eventually die faster. But past me apparently saw all of the ways that people learn and people could grow by thinking, the way that philosophers created these new points of views, whose the way that nihilism will eventually lead to people being freer because they view a lot of things as it doesn't need as unnecessary. Just all these different points of views that are created because of a single idea eventually don't matter when you just decide that nihilism is a better idea. You don't care. It's not going to matter eventually, so why keep caring about it? Nihilism is a dangerous thing because eventually you'll end up burning yourself out because you don't have to care for limits. I feel like I've gone a lot of different places without getting a solid point. But to reiterate what a few days ago me was thinking, people like their singular idea. If the idea was told to them first, there's a good chance they're not going to change it. And that's not a complaint. It's just an observation. It's just people out there really want to view this, really want to see a single thing. It's not bad. It's just a thing. Now I know this is a weird video. It's longer than the rest of them by a good margin. and it's kind of lengthy. That being said, I'll probably get back to my normal stuff. I just felt like I needed to get out whatever I was thinking on there. Let's call this my therapy session of the 2 months. Maybe in another 2 months I'll need another one of these. But until next time, I have been the Red Sun for a slightly depressing banter into this whole idea of the death of a philosopher by the way of spreading the quote killed the philosopher. The spreading word made him grow just that much more. Now, what did I say the last few times I've been on here? Have a nice day. Look forward to what you can do. Try to learn something new. That's what I've taken out of this. You know how many times I've listened to a song and the first version of the song is often my favorite, and then I don't really like remixes? It's because I like the first thing that I heard, and I really refuse to experience something new past that. So, that being said, I have been the Red Sun. Have a nice day. Be nice to each other. Learn something new. Wash your damn hands, or I'll cut them off. Say bye to the little stuffed animals in the background. Alright, I'm the Red Sun. Setting for today. Bye, guys.